Welcome to the Full Minded with Alyssa Bette podcast, where my mission is to normalize the human experience. I believe there's power in authenticity and building a community immersed in it. I plan on bringing you on an in-depth and transparent journey of my life through solo episodes. I will also be interviewing a range of individuals who are willing to share their unique stories. On this podcast, we will dive into topics such as mental health, heartbreak, loss, change, trauma, self-love, and every other topic that makes up the human experience. While I do my very best to provide you insight and knowledge on these subject matters, this podcast is not a substitute for professional help. I am not a licensed therapist. I am simply a human sharing my experiences with the intent to help people feel less alone. If you are suffering, please consult with a licensed professional. Thank you so much for tuning in and enjoy the episode. Welcome back to another episode, guys. It is morning time right now, and I've yet to get out of bed. I have a heating pad, so it's hard for me to get out of bed, you know what I mean? And so many of my days are working from home, so I can get a lot done from bed. But I didn't want to record in my office today because it's cold, and I wanted to just be snugly in my bed. I've got my candle going. Luckily, we are blessed with the sun today in Vancouver. It's peeking through my blinds, but let me tell you something about Vancouver. Most days, no sun. Even in the summer, like we're in August and the last week has just been downpouring rain, cold, like cold, like coat weather and rain and gloom. And I don't know why, but for the longest time, I pretended the weather didn't affect me. Why was I doing that? I don't know. I think I just didn't want to be like my parents who were very obviously affected by the weather. And so my whole life I was like, the weather doesn't affect me. The sun can shine or not, and I'm fine either way. Turns out I'm not really affected by the weather. I'm a houseplant. I need the sun. So when the sun's out, I'm so excited. So after I record this, I'm definitely going to lay on my balcony for a bit and absorb all the rays. So today, I'm excited about this one. And you guys should be too. I want to talk about honestly, just being single and self-love and my mindset of being single now versus back in the day and the pressures of society and all that other bullshit. So buckle up because it's going to be a good one. I remember growing up, the mission for people in general, but especially women, was always to find love, have babies, settle down, choose between having babies and having a career because you couldn't do both. It was just absolutely out of the picture. And for me, my example of a relationship was very dysfunctional. So I was raised to believe that men couldn't do much and that they were stupid. And I was very early on involved in the politics of my parents' relationship. I don't think that's healthy at all, obviously. Like, I knew details about their marriage at 10 that I wish I could unhear. I just wish I never knew them in general, not even just at 10. And so from a young age, I kind of had this idea about love that I had to be the one leading it. And I almost had to be the alpha because my mom really portrayed herself as that because she always portrayed my dad as not being able to do much, not competent of much. And I also had the traditional dynamic of him going to work and providing and just, he was always working and never home. I remember that. And my mom raised us and she was a stay-at-home mom until like later as we got older, she started to work. I remember that. But yeah, so it was a very interesting situation that I was born into and, you know, my first experience of learning love and all that. And there wasn't this big amazing celebration for being single. Like, it was actually like, is there something wrong with you? Like, that generation was very marry off as young as possible. And our grandparents were like married at like 12. So I feel like we're the very first generation to be like, hey, it's actually normal to be single. Like, self-love is something that is a huge accomplishment and should be praised. But I didn't always think that way. I thought to have a man by my side means that I'm succeeding in love. It's so interesting. My perspective has shifted so much on it, of course. But because of that mentality, and obviously, you know, if you've been tuning in and you know my story, you know the toxic dynamic that I grew up in and my view on love and my view of the world, right? It was very much survival. So the partners I was selecting were not creme de la creme, okay? They were struggling as well. I would find comfort in people who had mental health issues similar to mine, you know, traumatic background. I bonded over that. I trauma bonded over that. So for me, in my early years of dating, I just kind of jumped from person to person. I never took time in between to be single because, of course, my worth was built on external validation at that point. I only really knew how to love myself through the lens of other people, which is such a terrifying place to be looking back at it. Like, I didn't understand it then, but I honestly believe it was why the root of my mental health issues were so deep and so prominent, because all the love I had for me was based on other people. So if my relationship wasn't working out for reasons outside of my worth or the worth of the other person, I would assume it's because I'm unworthy. I would assume it's because I was not lovable, I was not enough. All of these things, this narrative that I had heard my whole life, you know, you're this, you're this, you're this, it would come to light whenever something wouldn't work out in any type of relationship, friendships as well. So for me, you know, being diagnosed with an abandonment disorder because of the abandonment in childhood, it just kept opening that wound. I kept attracting people that were unavailable emotionally, or I was unavailable emotionally. They would leave, we would break up, and I would be like, resume thinking, okay, I'm worthless and I should be abandoned and everyone's going to abandon me and I'm not worthy of love. And this cycle continued for a long while. And this cycle got spicier when I introduced alcohol and drugs into my life. As you know, I've suffered from severe addiction for a decade. I am sober now. But at the time, it brought out the worst version of me, the most unhealed version of me. And I think being in relationships are very, very powerful because they do showcase everything you need to heal and a lot of your childhood wounds. And for me, I spent 12 years dating different people, some long-term, some short-term, but nonetheless, 12 years of my life was dedicated to dating people and, you know, discovering wounds and discovering trauma and learning and unlearning and recognizing behaviors and recognizing issues and all that other stuff. But what I failed to achieve in those years of dating until the very end was self-love. And that is key in any successful relationship, friendship, honestly, like career path, life decisions. Like self-love is the root of all love. How you love yourself and how deep you love yourself is how you teach people how to love you and your value. Do you know what I mean? Like it is so powerful. And that's what I was missing. And I honestly believe a lot of my relationships were not successful because of that, because I didn't love me. I needed them to love me in order for me to feel any type of love about me. I never had self-love independently. And I remember my therapist trying to break down this chart that she had created for people with BPD, but honestly, it should just be relevant for people in general. And she was showing, you know, the relationship is one aspect of your life. You know, you have your friends, you have your career, you have this and this and this and this and this and this. But I said, I don't care. I only care about that. She was like, okay, well, that's where the issue's lying, my girl. Like I could only fixate on the relationship aspect in my life because that's where I was getting my validation. So without that relationship, without that person, of course, how would I be able to stand on my own 2 feet? How could I even look in the mirror and feel I was beautiful if I didn't have someone telling me it constantly? And it's interesting that I'm unpacking this now because obviously when you're in a relationship, I feel like I was really demanding of my partners at the time to show me affection, to show me love, to show me validation, of course, because I lacked it. And now to be in a relationship now, if I were dating or to be committed to someone, I feel like it would be so different. So different. It would honestly probably rewire what relationships and love even look like to me in my mind because of how healed I am and because of how much self-love I possess now. but that certainly wasn't always the case. And I will say, I've touched on self-love a little bit in my past episodes. For me, I can pinpoint that the self-love that I started achieving and like working on was when I got sober. Because I couldn't see clearly before, metaphorically and like literally. Like your girl was blurred out. I couldn't see my worth, my value, none of it. So it's interesting because the first time I remember being like, whoa, you're actually kind of dope, was I was on a sober stretch. And I don't remember if it was something I had said or something I did that day or just something I felt overall. But I remember looking in the mirror and having this moment and being like, whoa, you're actually kind of dope. I started to see for the first time what other people had been telling me my whole life. You know, you're worthy, you're beautiful, you're hilarious, you're this, you're that, whatever it was. And at the time I was in a relationship that was kind of on its way out, but that individual was really pushing me to get sober because they seen something in me that I couldn't see. They were like, we love the version of Liz that is you when you are sober. When you drink and you do drugs, there is this darkness that consumes you, and it's just not it. You're worth so much more than that. And it was the first time that someone had really sat down and said that to me. Like, people had joked about my drinking or made light of it. I remember my boss at the time said, you know, you don't always need to come into work hungover. I was like, yeah, but like, I want to. Crazy. That was a want. But no one had ever really sat down, looked me in the eyes and been like, I believe in you. I believe that you're more than the life that you're settling for, than the decisions you're making, than the addiction that's consuming you. And I remember it both breaking my heart and healing it at the same time. It was such an interesting feeling. And I knew then that he was right. I remember bawling because I tried to picture my life without alcohol. And I was like, how would I even breathe? How would I even cope? How would I even make friends? How would I even connect? How would I even be my authentic self? That is how deeply I was in addiction. It's wild looking back on it. But I remember getting sober and then slowly starting to have these moments of, oh my God, I think I'm worth something. I think these people may have a point. These motherfuckers that love me might have been right. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. And from that point, brick by brick, I built self-love and I started living for me. And I remember getting out of that relationship and I had about 6 months where I was single before I started dating somebody else, my most recent ex. And at the time I was like, wow, 6 months, like that's the longest I've ever been single. Good for me. And I learned so much. And I did learn a lot, especially because I was sober. So everything was like this sped up version of healing and self-love because I was thinking clearly and feeling my emotions and no longer numbing them. So that was really powerful. So I do feel like I grew a lot in those 6 months and I don't want to discredit that. I also don't want to put a timeline on how long you should be single for because I think that's going to be different for everyone, right? There's no way to be like, you need this amount of time to heal, etc. But for me, it wasn't long enough in hindsight. So I get into this new relationship and I'm better. I recognize that I'm better. Like I can cope with emotions more. I'm less triggered. I'm more healed. I'm aware of my worth. And it's interesting because when that relationship came to an end, I chose to end it because of how I was being treated. It wasn't a vibe towards the end, that relationship. It was really good overall, but then something shifted with him and he just started treating me like shit. And I was like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. The old version of me that didn't heal at all, that was not sober, I didn't think it was worth anything. So I would have begged for scraps and bare minimum and breadcrumbs. I would have been like, please, for the love of God, stay with me. Because if you don't stay with me, I don't believe I'm worthy. But I knew I was worthy. And at that point, I had done a lot of work on myself and I was gymming and eating good and I had started the business. So I could recognize, like that chart my therapist showed me, all the other aspects in my life that I had going for me. I got it. I was like, right, true. He is one portion of it. So let's cut him loose. So I did. I said, I deserve better. I deserve better 100%. And I never looked back, truthfully. I have never looked back. There has been moments, of course, healing is in waves, but it has been a long time since I thought about that relationship and ever even missing it, because I just knew, I'm like, I require this amount of energy to have access to me. If you're not putting in this work, I know what I'm worth, so I just won't fuck with you. And that is the power of self-love, my friends. That is the key. That is the massive difference from shifting from external validation to I fuck with me, so if you don't, I don't give a fuck. And now I'm on that like times 100, because since then, it'll be 2 years very soon. We're coming up to 2 years of me being single and me being like wholeheartedly single, full on, really not dating at all. I'm not on the apps. I'm not doing anything to try to find a man. Like, I am not interested at all in dating because I'm loving what this self-love chapter has done for me. I feel like people are gatekeeping. I feel like that people are lying to us and telling us that we need to be in relationships to be happy. We don't need to be dating anyone to be happy. Guys, I'm not dating anyone. I don't even have a crush on someone. There's no one in my mind that I'm like, you know what? I would maybe date them. Nothing. And that mentality used to scare me back in the day. I'm like, I got to have a roster. I got to have people that I could call upon. What if, and what if this relationship ends, then maybe I could date that person after. That's the way my brain was thinking because of how wrapped up my worth was in other people. Bro, no. It is such a vibe to be single. And I'm not saying there's not challenging moments, of course, but there's challenging moments no matter which way you spin it. You're trying to merge a life with somebody who has a completely different perspective, a completely different upbringing, traumatic events that are different from yours, different cultures at times. Like, being in relationships is very difficult. And I think it's not something our generation is amazing at. And the reason I say that is because I think that because we live in such a fast and easy society, we've gotten used to things being fast and easy. And I believe that relationships take an immense amount of work. And so much of that work is rooted in the individual's ability to work on themselves and to love themselves and to check themselves. And a lot of people lack that. And they think getting into a relationship is going to be easy peasy. Even if you've done the work on yourself and you feel ready to date, relationships have a way of bringing out the most unhealed versions of you because it's showing you what you need to work on, and it's showing you where you lack, and maybe where you lacked as a child, the love that you didn't receive. That will all rear its ugly head in romantic relationships. So people run. They get scared because they're like, holy shit, I don't like this version of me that I'm becoming. I don't like this version of, do you know what I mean? But relationships are a mirror, and they're meant to show you where you're at and where you're at with your own journey of self-love and healing and what you're able to accept about yourself. So I don't think a lot of people are ready to hear that. Honestly, I wasn't until like now. So no judgment, no shame. Like, we're all on our own healing journey, but relationships are not supposed to be easy. Like, they're just not. They're not supposed to be toxic and violent and unhealthy. I'm not saying that, but they're not meant to be easy. You have to discover a whole other person, the way they love to be loved, their traumas, the way that they react to certain things. Like, there's just merging of two completely different people, and just like friendships aren't easy at times, romantic relationships are certainly not easy. So I do think we have a lot of people that skip from relationship to relationship thinking it was the other person, when all along it's rooted in you. And it's me. I'm that person. I was that person for over a decade. But now I understand how important and essential, not even like it's essential to love yourself. It's fucking essential, because if you don't, you also teach people that you're not of value. And people pick up on that and they act accordingly to that. Like, think about if you were to meet two people right now, brand new people in your life, and one of them carries themselves with the utmost respect. They're punctual, they believe in themselves, they have goals, they speak well about themselves and others. And then the other individual, maybe shows up late, is a bit frazzled, and they constantly make jokes about themselves and put themselves down. Naturally, you are going to respect one more than the other. That's just like human nature, not even intentionally, but they are teaching you how to treat them. One of them is like, I have my shit together. I'm proud of myself. I speak highly of others. Speaking highly of others is a huge sign of being healed and having respect for yourself. It has less to do with other people and more to do with the relationship you have with yourself. If you are constantly making fun of yourself and others, you are very unhealed, and you should be cautious of people like this. Then you have this other individual who is speaking highly of others, carries himself well, is punctual, so values their time, but also yours. Naturally, you're going to gravitate towards this person and you're going to show them more respect because they are showing themselves more respect. You have to train people how to treat you. So one of the many reasons why self-love is so essential is because you train people how to treat you. Your bosses, your colleagues, your family, your romantic partners, your friends, people on the street. You train them how to treat you, how you carry yourself physically, mentally, spiritually, verbally. It says a lot about you. Even the way you walk into a room, if you're looking down on your phone and you're kind of like, oh, looking nervous, people are going to think, okay, she's nervous. But you walk into a room with confidence, eyes up, no fear. People are going to be like, oh, she's a force to not be fucked with. I love that. It says so much about you, and it sets the tone for every other interaction you have in life, not even just with relationships, with other humans. It comes down to what you accept, what you believe you are worthy of. And that will be your job. That will be your career. That will be what you choose to do in life, how you choose to spend your time, how disciplined you are because of how much you believe you're worthy of things. Like, it is such a key to, I'm so passionate about self-love. I can't even hold it back. Like, it's changed my fucking life, guys. I got sober, started a fucking business, started a podcast, started creating content on social media. With now hundreds of thousands of millions of people see my content, relate to it, all from being my authentic self because I fucking love myself and I don't care if other people don't. Not everybody's meant to be for you. That's okay. How exhausting would it be if they were? Imagine we had to connect with everybody or we had to be friends with everybody because we vibed well with them. We're not supposed to vibe with everyone. It's a good thing that you don't vibe with everyone. It's actually a sign of authenticity. To be able to be like hive-minded with the rest of the world and connect with everyone is just not authentic. There's no way to do it. I'm a big people person. I feel like I could make friends with a gummy bear. I don't vibe with everyone at all. And I'm okay with people disliking me. I used to not because, of course, my worth was, set on other people approving me. But I don't care. If I'm not for you, that's okay, babe. It doesn't mean anything if people aren't for you. It doesn't mean your worth doesn't change. Nothing about you changes. Some people just don't have things in common, or we don't connect well with other people, or you're triggering a version of them they knew back in the day and so they don't want to be friends with. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't make any difference about your worth and who you are. How people react to you and how people act in general has everything to do with the relationship they have to self, which is why my whole point is coming into fruition right now. Your relationship to self will set the tone for everything else and the way that people perceive you. It's so powerful. And all that to say that by taking this time to be single and embracing my singleness and actually being alone, because I think some people can be single and they'll be like, I've got a roster or I'm dating occasionally. And no shame to any of those people. But I truly feel like, for me personally, the most growth I have ever seen in myself is when I'm single, and I don't entertain anybody and I don't get any outside validation from men. I'm just living. I'm just living for me and me only. I've fallen so in love with myself and my routine when I'm home in Vancouver and my day-to-day life. Like today, I have no plans other than to get some work done. I'm going to gym and then I'm going to hit the sauna. And then I'm just going to do whatever the fuck I want. And that's amazing because the old me couldn't have had no plans. It would have shattered me, honest to God. I would have been like, I'm unworthy. I could have plans. I don't want to because I have so much fun with me, truthfully. And this is not to say that in moments I don't get lonely, but I would say like 98% of the time I'm good. But 2% of the time I'm like, oh, it'd be nice to be spooned. It'd be nice to be held. I do miss like that physical touch because I'm such a physical touch gal. That's my number one love language, how I receive and give. Sometimes that definitely affects me. And, you know, since my bestie and I moved out of the same apartment, it's definitely harder because I'm living alone and I don't have that. But so much of these skills you just learn to cope with in healthy ways the more time you give yourself time to be single. And solo traveling has obviously, you guys know if you've been tuning in, it has changed my life, especially in the aspect of being alone and trusting in myself and trusting that it'll all work out. I had like 17 million illnesses when I was in Bali. Very dramatic, but there was definitely a lot of instances. By the way, for anyone interested, my toenail is starting to grow back. And if you want to know more about my Bali trip, tune into the episode, The Bali Trip. It was wild, life-changing, immersive, beautiful, challenging, eye-opening, soul-shifting, shattering. Like I can't even explain it. You have to listen to the episode. It's incredible. But yeah, my toenail's growing back. Woohoo! But yeah, so that of course has changed who I am and just changed the way I view me. Like I remember coming home from the trip and thinking, oh, I'm going to get anxious when I pass through this tunnel because I'm usually a claustrophobic person. But then I just thought, think of all the things you just survived in Bali. Think of all the experiences that you just did on your own that were going to scare you or that did scare you and you overcame it. And immediately anxiety was gone. And I've actually not had any anxiety since I've been back from my trip. And I've had very little social anxiety since starting to travel alone in general. It's wild. Honestly, after my first trip to Southeast Asia last year, I came home and I was like, am I cured of social anxiety? Because let me tell you something, once you go to a foreign country by your fucking self and you just got to figure it out, like there's not many things that make you uncomfortable. Like you are in a foreign country, people are staring at you way more than normal and you just got to figure it out. I took the Korean subway by myself. Everything was in Korean. I was like, what the fuck? Like, I feel like I deserve a medal for that. Like you should see how confusing the signs are. It's wild. I'm still like impressed that I didn't get too lost. I did pretty well, but just things like that, things to challenge yourself, doing solo trips, spending time with yourself and understanding what you love and treat yourself like somebody you love. You know, I don't feel good today. Okay, let me rest. Let me not show judgment for that. Let me show grace to myself. You know, just how would you treat a child of yours? How would you treat your best friend? You know, show up for yourself in the way that you were never shown up for, maybe growing up or in past relationships. Like this is your opportunity to nurture you and to embrace you. Like promise you relationships get easier with other people the more you work on the relationship you have to self. Truthfully, there is no better investment in life than the relationship you have with yourself. So curate the best experiences. Take care of yourself. Allow yourself to be sick. Allow yourself to take rest days. Allow yourself to be imperfect. Allow yourself to be human and love yourself through it. You know, show up for yourself in the way that you want others to, because that's exactly how they will. Once you start loving yourself and once you start showing them, I am worthy of this love and this is how I expect to be treated. Do you know how high my standards are now, guys? They are through the motherfucking roof. Before, a man used to open a door for me and I'd be like, I'm yours forever. You got me. 100%. That's all you had to do. Like, it was the most breadcrumbing ass situation ever of all time. And now that I've taken the time to be single and to be healed, I will not tolerate anything but the best of the best. You got to be able to treat me better than I can treat myself. And right now, I've been taking myself on trips. I've been holding myself down. I've been making sure my bath is nice and warm. My tea is ready to go. Like I treat myself like royalty because I am royalty. I believe I'm worthy of that. So unless you do, you know, the most, and you are also looking after you and you are also treating yourself with respect and you are also able to teach me things and guide me and, you know, offer me more than I can offer myself, I won't entertain it. I won't even look in your direction. No way. The last thing I want to touch on before I wrap up this episode is, societal expectations of people being in relationships, because I do think that is like the biggest pushback I've had with people being like, how are you so comfortable with being single when everyone wants you to get married? I'm like, what? I just don't give a fuck. That's the other benefit of self-love. You just don't care what people think. Working on yourself is going to help you evolve into this person that doesn't carry the weight or expectations of the world on yourself. If people are like, why are you single? I'd be like, because I love myself. There's not a shortage of men to date. Like, there's men, if I wanted to date someone, I would date someone, but I don't want to date someone because I am loving me right now and doing me. So for me, like, I would rather be single forever than settle in a relationship where I don't feel valued. If any of my relationships had worked out, I don't think I would have been happy because of the version of me that attracted them in the first place. I'm no longer that version. That version of me has died. So for me, it is far more, it's not even like a comparison, because for me to live alone or to be single forever and just travel the world and just have a wonderful life where I'm very fulfilled with myself and my friendships and everything else that I'm doing, that's no comparison to settling. Like, settling would be like such a terrible thing, whereas that is actually like a good thing, to be alone and be single. Like, there's no negative, I don't relate any negative connotation to being single. I think if someone's single, I'm like, that's amazing. I don't even really think about it. It's just like when you're in your lane and you're loving yourself so much, you're not comparing yourself to others. And you're also not just looking at the way other people live their lives and judging them. If you're healed and doing your thing, you're not even really paying attention to anyone else. And I don't mean that in an egotistical way. I mean that as in you are just fixated on your own goals and your own life, as we all should be. You know what I mean? It's none of our business how other people live their lives. It's their life. What works for us isn't always going to work for other people. So just allow people to do the things they want. And people who cast judgment on you for being single, just tell on themselves about where they're at in their healing journey, or that they've settled themselves. So don't let those people offend you. Take all the time you need to be single, to be free, to learn about yourself, and love yourself wholly and fully so that you can teach other people how to love you. This was fabulous, and this episode was a request from one of my friends. So this one's dedicated to you, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, however you're spending it. Sending you lots of love. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. I loved having you. If you wish to support this podcast, please follow us so you never miss an episode. You can also find us on social media at Full Minded Podcast. Please visit our website at www.fullmindedpodcast.com to submit all your questions. If you wish to be a guest on this podcast, please fill out the form on our website to apply. Your continued support means the world, so thank you again for taking the time out of your day to tune into Full Minded with Alyssa Bette. Until next time, be kind to yourselves and remember that there is power in owning our imperfect and messy lives. It's all a part of the human experience, and you're not alone in it.